I want to present these tools and have the possibility for people to explore the new capabilities that our emerging energy system and our maturing energy system is offering to us. And even though a lot of us have gone beyond the basics, and some amazing things are happening right now with teleporting and time traveling and things like that, no matter how far in advance you go, it's always good to recognize when it's a good idea to go back to basics. And so in my own practice, I'll be doing things and enjoying what I would say are more developed practices. Some people may say advanced practices. And then I find myself suddenly not tuning in as clearly or not being able to get to it as clearly. And that's a signal. That's a signal. Go back to the basics and work with the basics. The other thing is that when you're working with something that's very interesting and even inspiring or exhilarating, these are things that happen to me. And one day you want to work with it and it's just not quite there. You might want to notice that your system, when I say your system, your consciousness, is actually trying to direct you somewhere else and to another aspect of the system, or even something that needs to be addressed, in the external life. You have to figure that out. I can't tell you that, but it's a signal when you're trying to get to something and it's not quite as available as it was yesterday or the day before, that it's either go back to the basics. There's something there that needs to be harmonized, or it's a signal that you need to look in another direction right now because something else is requiring attention. And once the attention is there, then oftentimes you'll either see that as now that is the place for your development, and it's time to leave that place that you were engaged in, or after a little bit of attention, then you can migrate back to the things that you were doing. So we have to be very flexible. But one of the signals is you can't quite get to it, or it's not quite as dynamic. You can work with it. It seems to be interesting still, but it's not as dynamic as it was yesterday, the day before, a week ago. And so that's a signal that your attention is being drawn to another vital area of development. And it can be something also basic. And a lot of times when we're working with more complex practices, we might think, well, then we need to go to something else that's more complex. But it can be the signals to go back to something more basic. So hopefully that's helpful, because we like to feel like we're on the pulse. We like to feel like that we're engaging to the fullest, and this organic fluid component to our practice. And the word practice I'm using because it's a word that we understand, but it's not always practice. It's actually experiencing, journeying, all the things that we might do with ourselves in our external life, listening to music, taking a walk, eating a fine meal. It's that kind of experience that gives us excitement or pleasure or interest or creativity. So this is one of the purposes of why we want to present these live streams, and we're really interested to hear your comments and your questions. And also, I think it's very important that we understand how to harmonize our energy systems, because it's not only we as individuals, because as the energy system opens and expands, we also start to harmonize with other energy systems around us. And right now, I think that what we see globally is that the energy system is out of harmony. And that's how we can approach it. Harmonize our own energy system, but then expand that out to the global energy system. As an example, when we don't feel right, when we're in friction with either ourself, other people, with things that we're doing, we go into our chakra system, inevitably, we're going to find that 1, 2 or chakras are not operating in harmony with each other, with himself, because we have the front and the back that have to function symmetrically, harmonically. And it could be also just the whole system. And as we learn how to harmonize the energy system, it could be our kundalini channels. One is wobbling, one is like deficient, and we can work with those and bring back the harmonization, the symmetry within the system. We start to see the effect of that take place in the environment around us, whether it's the physical environment or the energetic, emotional, psychological environment around us. So for this reason, I think that it's very on the pulse for us to have our live streams and to present this material. We have a lot of supporting material that you can access through the links below. And I highly recommend Lynn's podcast, because a lot of the things I talk about, she very methodically offers lessons and practices, very good methodical practices in a lot of the things that I talk about. So, Lynn, do we have any questions today?
Just some a question similar to last week about the outer body membrane, and talking about with some details on how that operates, especially to help protect someone from sensitivity to other people's energies or the world energies.
Yeah, this is a really great point, and something that's been really valuable for me and a lot of the people that practice with the outer body exercises. A lot of times when we read about the energy body, it's presented like this thing that exists outside the body. And last week I was talking about it, that it also exists as deeply in the body. That it's just this kind of energy that radiates. And if we look at it more closely, first of all, it's a system. The outer body and the energy system is a system that has components. The chakras, these what I call membranes, the kundalini channels, these are all components of a system. Just like our digestive system, we have our stomach, esophagus, we have our digestive, our elimination, and all these different components. So is true with the energy system. We have the chakras, we have the kundalini channels, and we have other elements in that system that will be revealed as we go forward. But those are the main ones. So we're talking about the idea of the membrane. And I put up here today that the basics, which I already talked a little bit about. The basic of all basics is beginner's mind. And this is something that you don't just get it. It's something you develop over a lifetime. We'll always be developing the understanding of what is beginner's mind. The other thing that's always a intermediary with all practices is the breath. And I highly recommend that you learn how to do the parasympathetic breath that we also talked about recently. And I will talk about it again because it's one of the essential parts of the practice. So when we get to the outer body, we see a principle that exists all the way back to the original beginning of organic life. And that is that what separated organic life from the inorganic environment was a membrane. And that membrane had two very important principles behind it. One was semi-permeability, and the other one is selective permeability. So semi-permeability means that it can become more or less permeable. More permeable because it wants to receive, take in more. Less permeable because it wants to receive less or keep something away. Also, it has an intelligence, which is the beginning of what we now might call discernment. It is selecting, and it can receives something that it needs, but it can also prevent something from coming in when it recognizes through its discernment that it may be disruptive or even harmful. So that membrane has this intelligence which maintains the integrity, or what you might call the homeostasis of the cell. As we develop organisms, then you have multicellular organisms. So other types of membranes that are connective membranes or connective tissue, so to speak, develop. And they also have this permeability that where chemicals and nutrition, liquids, fluids can transverse that membrane so that it can move from one part of the organism to another. So that principle goes to another level. We also have a thick membrane, the skin, and the skin is still semi-permeable, and it will prevent certain energies from entering that without the skin would be very disruptive to the muscles, to the tissue. So the skin prevents certain frequencies from entering directly, but it also receives certain frequencies and transmutes them into various kinds of things, like vitamin D is a very well-known one. Also, the skin is a breathing organism. So we take in oxygen and we discharge carbon dioxide through the skin. So it's less permeable than a cellular membrane, but still we have this protective membrane that really maintains the integrity of our form and structure and our internal homeostasis. As our energy system develops, that cellular membrane principle expands to the outer body. So the outer body, which is classically seen in three layers, etheric, emotional layer, and the mental layer or psychological layer, also has this semi-permeable, selective permeable quality. And so it now is functioning more at the emotional level, which is in the end vibrational interchange, the mental level, which is another type of energy or vibrational interchange. And then we actually have another skin or thick membrane at the border of the mental body. And this is something that we can discuss because we have the possibility with our consciousness to expand that mental membrane or to make it more dense. Now, this is something that we'll cover as we go on in the future. But for now, we can really get a lot of value working with the sensation of the outer body and its layers. A lot of times I just work with it as one entity, but also each layer has its own unique quality that we can discover and learn how to become more permeable, so more receptive, as an example, in certain situations. A lot of times someone might even say to you, you're not being very receptive. And you could internally say, well, I don't want to be. But if you are trying to harmonize with another person, you might know, okay, I can become more receptive by becoming more permeable in that moment. If you selectively decide to do that. On the other hand, you may enter into an environment that has a lot of emotional charge, a lot of energy moving around. Let's say you go to a shopping mall or you go to a sports stadium, and there's all this energy that's very chaotic and very invasive. You may want to make your membranes less permeable. You're on a public transportation like a train, and there's a lot of energies and emotional debris floating through public transportation. So you may want to really feel like protecting by making these membranes less permeable. Now, the thing that is coming up along with that is, well, realizing that you have that ability. This is a basic ability in the development of the light body. And the light body is something that's more of a mature state of the energy body, whereas that the outer body is that when we're experiencing the vibrational body, but it really hasn't taken that much form, and we haven't really learned to regulate it deeply with our consciousness. So like an infant or a fetus in the womb that goes from single cells to different formations, more maturity, the extremities, the internal organs. Our outer body is in that same process right now of going from a fetal development to a mature development. And so different parts of the energy body may be at different stages of that development. We are also on the verge of experiencing something that's a spiritual birth, where we're really being fully gestated, and then there's a labor process and being born into a vibrational state, which will be accommodated by the mature light body. So these are all topics that we can go into in much more depth. We have information on our website, in our materials that you can take a look at, that also talk about these things in more depth. But I've interacted and gone deeply into the things I'm talking about. And I just want to say, for sure, going back to the basics is a very valuable thing that I do all the time. So back to the starting point, and to the question is that we can regulate this quality of the membrane or the outer body. They're one and the same. It's a membrane that has this repeating qualities of semi-permeability and selective permeability. And at the cellular level in the body, it's an unconscious function. Whereas when we get to the vibrational body, we're starting to regulate it. Now, in some way, indirectly, we can regulate the cellular permeability by quality of environment, by quality of food, by quality of water. And we give, some input to that selectivity. If we're eating and drinking in really harmful, polluted environments, then we're giving our cells, something it has to really be protecting against, and it's disruptive. Whereas if we're choosing these more positive fluid intake, food intake, then the cells, can be more receptive. So indirectly, we can interact with the cellular permeability. When it comes to this energy body permeability, then the awakening of this permeability, where we actually apply the consciousness to it and regulate that, becoming more permeable, less permeable. This is a new stage of how we can work with that and utilize the advantages of that for our well-being, for the well-being of the things around us. So I hope that's a useful, answer to that question. And I'm going to work with a process today, for the development of the permeability. Are there any other questions? So I just wanted to go over quickly that, and I'll probably be repeating this quite often, that the basic foundation of developing sensitivity for all of what we're talking about is this proprioceptive awareness, we could call it, proprioceptive awareness. And within that, there's proprioceptive exercise of different types. And this is also something that Lynn goes into on her podcast in several episodes, step by step. And we also have other modules that go into that. But anyway, proprioceptive is when we go into that modality of reception, the receptive reception, or how you say, perception. Proprioception is like a tuning us into a subtle aspect of how we react and how we respond to different changes that are going on physically and energetically. So proprioceptive. Most of us are not operating consciously at a proprioceptive level. So we do various exercises and we become aware of this switch. And we can become faster at invoking this state of proprioceptiveness, and we can become more adept at noticing when we've made that change. It's like changing gear in a car, in an automobile. When you do downshift or you upshift, you notice that there's this change. The same thing when you do these proprioceptive exercises, you notice that this shift takes place and that your perception now is at a subtler level. You're noticing things that normally you don't notice. And when you notice the things that you don't normally notice, they seem to be more exaggerated than normal. They seem to be greater. Like as an example, you may notice a proprioceptive movement in the body, and it will just seem like a very tiny movement. But then when you connect to it more proprioceptively, it seems like that same movement has greater range, greater amplitude. So those are, that's one of the signals of it. There's a basic 3 steps that we talk about. How to exercise so that we really develop this proprioception. Not only proprioceptive, but proprioceptive awareness that we can develop. So then there's like variations on that. You can sit and just do breathing and then notice how the proprioceptive intelligence of the body wants to move the body in different ways, or take your attention to different motions that are going on. So even when we're very still, we can notice a lot of movement in the body. Blood flow, cellular movement, the cranial rhythm movement, the breathing of this outer body, the selective permeable change of the outer body. We can start to notice all of those things and either notice how they're changing or invoke the change itself. So that's the proprioceptive, and really encourage you to spend some time. Before this podcast, I was doing proprioceptive exercise just to get myself more in tune with what I wanted to say, and hopefully more in tune with those of you that are watching. So the next part is, after we develop the sensitivity, we start to experience these layers of energy around us. And do you need to say something, Lynn?
We did have a question on the outer body membranes.
Okay.
I was going to mention when Saul talked about the proprioceptive exercise, for those of you if you haven't done the light body work with Saul before, 2 of the main things that stimulate it is slow motion movement and then attention to an elastic quality. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Zoe said, I perceive there could be membranes between the outer body layers. What do you think?
I agree. There are. I don't talk about that much because I feel like when we're really utilizing the totality of the outer body, that they kind of merge. There's like that the membranes are opening to a point where the layers are emerging. One of the times where I experienced the membrane in the outer body the most, though, is when I'm working with the etheric layer. And that etheric layer is also like a skin, because it's also very protective, and it filters out certain vibrations that are entering, that if the etheric layer was not filtering, also could be disruptive and harmful because they're too much of a high frequency. And if you go through a period of time working with the outer body and you're noticing those membranes, I think that is where you're being directed to those membranes, and you specifically can get a lot of benefit out of working with them and noticing the permeability changes, the selectiveness changes. So this is something that you could really share with us. What kind of general or even specific things that happen when you work with those membranes?
Do you think you could even, do Could you work with something like your etheric body for protection from something like sunburn?
Well, yeah, you can. It's just I wouldn't rely on that if you have the tendency to have sensitive skin. I wouldn't rely on that 100%. I would work into that slowly until you see signs that it's actually having a result. You know, the etheric body is also very much connected to our immune system. It's also very much connected to a chakra that we don't talk about too much, which is the spleen chakra over here on the left. And that's very much connected to the power of our immune system and its connectedness to the etheric body. And keep in mind that the etheric body is not just outside. It penetrates deeply into the body, to the cellular level, the intercellular level, all the way into the bone structure. So it's like if we would remove all the physical mass, the etheric body, and we could see the etheric body, it would still be the exact form of our physical body inside and out. So is that kind of the answer to the question? Is there another? Okay, so just to keep going here, if we wanted to just look at the basic building blocks, the outer body is noticing these qualities, just like in that last question, that there's membranes. Proprioceptive work helps us to become more clear about what it is that we're feeling. And when we start to expand into the vibrational body, the perception changes, but also our senses start to merge. So what we feel, we can see. What we see, we can hear. So the senses become synthesized as we go into the vibrational body and develop its capacity. Certainly, when we get to the point where the light body is starting to form more dynamically. Yeah, sure.
Nishani said, "Hello, I'm interested in the switch between membranes that you just mentioned, Saul. I've experienced this without setting a specific intention and outside of practice. Can you explain that?"
The switch between membranes. What?
Or even be maybe meaning becoming more and less permeable, even or having an awareness of different layers, saying that they've experienced that without setting intentions.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying is the question like, how do you notice when it becomes more or less permeable?
How could they have experience about that without doing one?
Well, we are reacting. Our membranes are reacting whether we're conscious of it or not. And that's one of the reasons, like as we develop more energetically, we're practices that we're doing, that a lot of us are doing, if you're doing yoga, Tai Chi, breathing, meditation, any kind of consciousness work at all, it's provoking the development of our energy body. And as that happens, that the membranes will tend to start reacting more dynamically. So a lot of people start to notice, oh, I'm too open. It's just things that people say. I have to learn how to close because they feel like they're too open, as an example. You might notice sometimes that you're not getting it, so you might feel too dense. So the membranes are reacting unconsciously. And the idea here is that since they're so powerful in terms of like how we're experiencing energy exchange, whether it's emotional, communication, on and on, learning how to regulate it for the appropriateness of a situation can be highly valuable. Last week I was talking about when you go to a membrane or an area of the outer body, the attention there tends to expand it. But it also raises the frequency because your attention there, those frequency ranges now become the center of your frequency field. So what you might notice is that the outer body, or some layers of it, feel more dense. Like you may feel like there's a fluid, or like a pressure, or even a gel at a certain point. So what usually feels like it has no density starts to have the feeling of density, viscosity. And the physical body, you may notice, feels less dense, less present, or it feels like it starts to merge out into the space, like there's no border. The skin, which is usually a clear border between inside and out, when you go into those frequencies, that disappears and you just merge out. And I think we spent quite a bit of time last week coming back in with the skill of like, well, don't stay out there floating around like a float in a parade. You know, you want to bring yourself back down into form, into structure, because that's where your physical vehicle that carries you around in this physical plane is probably going to be most comfortable. So you can deal with the impact of the physical plane. If you expand and then you don't come back to more density, then you're not going to be able to handle the impact of the physical plane, people, places, and things, activities. So learning how to vacillate in terms of expanding and contracting. When you go out, the border disappears. Your form actually disappears. You become less in this physical form. Also, there's a sensation proprioceptively, like you're going up on an elevator. And then when we start to pull ourselves back down, our form reappears. We start to shift our attention to the physical body. So those physical level of frequencies become where the median point of our attention, so we feel more dense. The outer body becomes much less dense. So we're learning how to migrate our attention, and as our attention changes, you know, the baseline of our frequencies change, and how we experience the different planes also is shifting. You think that was answering the question? Okay. Go ahead.
Also, some people, depending on their makeup, constitution, are naturally more permeable. Right?
Yeah.
With a lot of children born, especially through the last 20 years or so, their energy system is becoming more and more expanded. Could be part of symptoms of something like autism. Sensitivity to so much emotional and sensory activity in the environment around. So a child would be naturally more permeable.
Yeah, and also learning disabilities, or what's perceived as learning disabilities. A large percentage of learning disabilities, how do you say, attention deficit. That is actually a lot of that is because children are being born into higher frequencies. They're also being bombarded with digital media, which also causes the nervous system and brain to function differently and have what is perceived as a lesser attention span. But at the baseline, it's that their attention now is also migrating to a whole different value system of learning, or what we would call education. So this archaic system and progression of education that most of the world is based on is now is becoming, how would you say, outdated. It needs to have something more organic, more connected to the understanding of a child's attention or their nature, and then providing environment that accommodates what the child's nature is attracted to. Instead of saying, okay, well, now you're this age, so you should learn this. You're this age and you should learn that. As we're born, different generations are born with higher and higher frequencies, that system is going to be less applicable, and it's going to be more necessary that we understand the nature of the child and provide an environment that really matches its natural interests and its natural, how would you say, of development. It's speed, rhythm, the rhythm of development. And that's something that is very much missing right now in most modern education. But when we try to trap the child into this archaic progression, very rigid, vertical, linear system of education, they rebel against it. So now we say they have a behavioral problem in a lot of cases. And I think a very high percentage of children that are perceived to have behavioral problems, that have this attention deficit. So what do? They medicate them. They put them on medication. But what does that do is that it slows down and interrupts their creative process, their creative abilities, their skills, and many different things, from music to mathematics. It slows it down. So we really have to start to see this more organically, less linear, and provide a child with an environment that is suited for its nature. And therefore, when you provide them with something that they're interested in, then their attention will stay steady on something, and that their behavior will be more satisfied and not causing friction, because the friction is coming from they want to do something else. They don't want to do that. And why should they? They're not interested in it. So I think even going back to, past generations, we can see that that rebellion was there and could have been remedied by providing an atmosphere that was interesting, rather than one that was being forced and should be the should be environment. Anyway, maybe I'm getting a little bit off the track, but it seems to be really connected to how we're being born as humans into higher frequency fields. And we have to recognize that in terms of how we develop and how we educate. Okay, proprioceptive sensitivity, developing also connection to a very deep intelligence that we have, that knows how to align itself, that knows what we need for alignment, what we need for homeostasis. The outer body is a selective permeable membrane. It's also something that's maturing. It functions semi-consciously, unconsciously, but we have now the possibility to operate consciously and regulate this according to what we want to do and what our needs are, and recognizing the development of this system and how it provides us with new frontiers of awareness, perception, and capability. Capability is very important. This is important for me, is this mind awareness energy. We can tell that the mind is connected to energy like a chakra, or to a acupuncture point, or to an acupuncture meridian, by understanding that there is a sensation. The connection is when we have a certain type of sensation. I've talked about it. And that sensation, for me, the easiest is to notice that when our mind connects, let's say, to this point. This point can be also seen as what they call a minor chakra. It's a heart governor point, but it's also a chakra, extension of the heart chakra. When we connect our mind to that, well, we can imagine that it's there, but when our mind connects, we start to have this numb and tingling sensation. And then what we can do, we can spread that sensation. So this is something we're doing with our will. And then we can spread that numb and tingling from that point to the fingers, to the back of the hand, to the wrist. And then we can also, with the mind, focus it again on that point. This is something that you can practice continually. I'm still doing that, even though it's one of the first things that I discovered in this work. Of course, I discovered it, and then many nuances of that have presented itself to me through working with it. It's a really interesting sensation. It's a really interesting experience to have. It's going to be something that we're going to be using to propel the mature light body, because the mature light body becomes a vehicle. And, we're talking about that in some of our programs right now, and how to utilize that vehicle. Anyway, one of the key activators of that vehicle are these special, what are called at a lower frequency acupuncture points. But those acupuncture points become something expanded in their usage when we work with them at this higher level of the light body. Here's the thing, when we use proprioceptiveness to realize this connection between the mind and energy areas or points or chakras, the sensation becomes information. And this is very interesting because it's not only just information like directions or information about nutrition. It could be. It can be very conceptual, linear type information, very usable. You may get information when you tune into the sensations of the body because there's an intelligence there, a deep intelligence that's creating alignment, that's creating homeostasis. It's very powerful because it has the intelligence to do that. And it may send to your awareness information about your diet, your exercise, many things, physically, emotionally, life-wise, but also about the energy system itself. It may bring your attention to certain faculties, functions of the energy system that you were not aware of. So at first it seems like, oh, well, there's a sensation. Cool. I feel it. Oh, that's my point. I can spread it. I can condense it. But then as you're working with it, you're going to notice that when you tune into these sensations, that certain informations, whether they're linear, conceptual, abstract impressions, it's like rising up to your awareness. And then there's different ways that to utilize this information. And, we'll talk about that, mention that from time to time. It's a very powerful little rhyme that the sensation is information of all sorts. So it's educational. So basics, proprioception, we can feel through proprioception more subtleties of this outer body and its membrane, the permeability, the ability to condense it, become less permeable, how we can start to regulate all factors of our energy system. And it gets complex. And so that's why we want to have a good foundation, because then we can regulate these complexities. And it's not only like hit and miss, that you can do it, you can't do it. We want to be able to do it reliably. We want to be able to do it in a way on demand. So there are a lot of things using these principles that help us regulate in real time. It's not like something that, well, I've got to go run into my meditation room now and sit there for an hour and I'll be back, so hold on. You learn to, in real time, adjust chakras, adjust the membranes so that it gives you better facility, a better experience in what you're doing in the moment. I'm working with something that I'll be presenting as a course module in the next weeks that I've been working with for several years now. And that is that how to physically energize the body in the moment by tuning into chakras, activating the chakras. A lot of it's around the solar plexus because the solar plexus is an energy expenditure plexus, nerve plexus. Some of them are more gathering, building, parasympathetic. The solar plexus is more sympathetic, breaking down, expending energy. And as we're expending that energy from the solar plexus, directing it to certain areas of the body. So I've been using it, especially in this one hike that I like to go on in the woods. When I go up a very steep incline, and I notice I activate the solar plexus, I send that energy to the sacral plexus into the legs, and the next thing I know, it's almost like I powered myself up this steep incline without even thinking about it. And a lot of times when I get up to the top of that incline, and another thing I've been working with very reliably, my heart rate is increased, my breathing rate is increased. And as soon as I switch from the heart rate and where the breathing, the oxygenation into the blood, to the solar plexus, which is more deriving energy directly either from stored energy in the liver or from light, that the heart rate very quickly goes back to normal in a much faster amount of time. So, where it might take like minutes and minutes, it'll within seconds can go from an accelerated heart rate, need for oxygen, back to equilibrium. And, it was a challenge to be able to do that while moving, like to have the sensation in the chakra. Anyway, I'm just saying that there are some very advanced applications, and we're about to present that in new material that we're doing in our course program. But the feeling of the sensation is a very important part of these advanced type of applications. And you'll find yourself being able to work with things like time travel, both forward and back, certain aspects of, let's say, the very kindergarten level of bilocation and things like that. So, okay, this one is so basic, but so potent at all levels of this light body work, and also maintenance of your physical well-being. It's not just this kind of expanded light body, but the core of the light body in this moment is the physical body. It's like the nucleus of the cell, actually. What is in the nucleus of the cell? The DNA. This is the nucleus. What do we have in the core of the nucleus? The kundalini channels, which are like the evolved DNA. So let's do a process. Are there any questions, Lynn? All right. I like to do a process to exercise, to get more facility with what I've been talking about today. So the parasympathetic breath. One of the things that I think that you can do to develop this more is when we breathe into the lower part, chest, and then the upper chest. And I always say to feel it like you're breathing in and expanding a balloon. So that means that not just feeling the front, which is where most people feel it, but to also feel the expansion on the sides and in the back. So it can be valuable if you're not feeling this balloon sensation for some time to focus in on the sides. That breathe in, not here. I mean, of course, this will expand too, but to feel the part that's expanding on the sides and then do the same thing for the back until you get the sensation of the balloon. You fill up the lower part, pelvic, and the hara, the chest, and the upper chest. And then you reverse, empty out the upper, empty out the chest, empty out the lower pelvic area. The other thing that is really important is that you breathe up to the top of the nose. Now, you actually have 3 holes that in the nose on each nostril, one at the lower, middle, and upper. And you want to draw the air more to the upper because this is stimulating the olfactory nerve or the parasympathetic nerve. That has a relaxation effect, but also just that part of the breathing triggers proprioception. So there's a crossover there. And very important is to breathe in silently. A lot of times people will make this, and there's certain practices where that can be interesting and useful, but in this practice, we want to pull the air up over the back of the nose and keep it very silent, filling up the cavities, breathing out, and letting the air out. When we breathe out, the air also comes back over the upper part of the nose and out. And you'll notice, so this goes back to a question that somebody asked, that you'll notice the body is shifting gears and that you're going more into this relaxed proprioceptive state. So we'll start with that, then we'll go to the expansion of the outer body and work with some things that are related to the permeability and also the points and the sensation. So let's just take some deep breaths in and breathing out. And breathe in, really pull that air up to the top, the bridge of the nose, over the back of the nose. Filling up the lower, middle, and the upper part of the body. And then slowly releasing from the upper, middle, lower. Parasympathetic breath is calming, it's relaxing. It's good for anxiety. It's good for impatience. It's good for friction, to relieve friction. All right, let's go to the palms and feel our palms. And as we connect our awareness to the center of the palm, I think it's an interesting sensation starts to occur. You feel like a tingling or a numb, like a live numbness, not a dulling numbness, somehow an alive numbness. And the more your attention connects, and you know there's this saying that energy flows where your attention goes. So this is like a very concrete, practical way to understand that the more your attention is going now to the palm, the greater the sensation becomes. And you notice that the sensation penetrates. It goes into the palm. And it starts, if you allow it, to spread. It spreads either to the heel of the hand or to the fingers. And it may penetrate right through to the back of the hand. And you just allow it and keep your attention. As it expands, sometimes you may see the bone structure like you're looking at an X-ray. This is your inner eye, your what you feel, what you can see, what you feel what you see. And it's penetrating, expanding, allowing the energy to expand. And then it can be interesting also to reverse. Pull your attention back to the center of the palm. Try to condense, collect all the energy so it's not so spread, more pinpointed. And this is a great exercise. For regulating, taking command of your energy system. And then you can let it expand. Let your attention go deeper. And one thing that can be very interesting is to just slowly let the palms lift off. into the air. Still keeping fully connected to the sensation. And you can let your palms kind of float outward or inward, upward, downward, alternating. Play with it. But always with the priority that you stay connected to the sensation, and then you can do whatever comes next. In and out, up and down, alternating, lifting, lowering, holding, and just floating your body in a twisting, very easy twisting from right to left while you hold your attention on the sensation. And the more sensation you have, you may notice that it takes less and less energy to hold up your hands. It's like they're floating out there and being held up by an energy structure rather than by muscular tension. And this is an effect you can produce anywhere in the body, in any acupuncture point, meridian line, organ, tissue layer. And as long as you keep your attention there, then you can just play with this. Like playing ball, it's like juggling, it's like playing an instrument. These are vibrations, these are frequencies. Sometimes you may see light, like when the sensation gets very strong, it's like lights are going off. And those lights may also have various colors. So you can just notice that. If you don't see that, don't worry about it. Just notice what you notice. So now bring the palms back over the knees and let them just float back down. So many different effects from doing that, from playing, discovering, to calming the system, relieving anxiety, uplifting the mood, just from that simple exercise. And let's now feel our physical body, the density of it, arms, legs, torso, hip structure, back, neck, head, face. And you may notice that now, since we did these first two parts, the breath and the points, that very quickly you almost feel the sensation through the whole body. Tingling. And if you do, notice the border, the skin layer. And you may notice that it feels wider. Ask yourself, how does my body feel in this moment? How does my body feel? And we'll bring our attention 2 or 3 or 4 inches from the skin surface, 5 or 6, 7 centimeters. And we feel that space, or what normally is a space, it starts to become a sensation. It starts to feel like it has a density, like the physical body has. And you feel that above and below, sides, front and back. And feel that space, notice that space. And how your body, your physical body feels like it expands out into that etheric space. You may even feel like the skin now is further away. It's merging. The etheric body interacts with the skin, the muscles. This feeling of going out, expanding outward. And as we do that, we're also creating permeability, becoming more permeable. And let's go out further, maybe 3, 4, 5 feet, or 1.5 meters. And feel that space of the emotional body. And as your attention goes out in all directions, then you notice that there's feeling of substance. That's the bioplasm. And when you feel that substance, you notice that it creates a sensation on the physical body, like a tingling, like a numbness, a pressure, a slight pressure. The physical body expands out into that wider space. At the same time, you can feel the emotional body penetrate deep into the core. And just like we were playing with and experiencing the palms, experience this space, this bioplasm that's from the body out, maybe 1.5 meters or so, and 3, 4, 5 feet. You notice that you've expanded out into that space, into that dimension. This feeling of expanding, this feeling of less force from gravity, lifting, the elevator effect. And you can go out to the mental body, 3, 4 meters from the physical body. 5 to 10 feet. And you may notice when you go out, expand out into that space, and it has a sensation that you may feel the walls of the room that you're in, the ceiling, the floor. You may feel like you're penetrating down through the floor, but you can notice the feeling of the walls and the ceiling in the room. Your bioplasm is making contact to those physical structures. You may feel yourself permeating through those structures. And as you do that, this expansion, physical body expanding outward, upward. Ask yourself, how does my body feel? Do I feel different? Gravity's becoming less. And the bioplasm, the fluid, liquid, gel quality of the outer body starts to become more perceivable. And as you travel out with your awareness to the border of the mental body, you may notice that it's, again, like a skin, another thicker membrane. In some ways, this is like the placenta, the border of the placenta. And as you connect to that border of the mental body, if you like, you can allow it also to expand. And when you do that, Normally you feel another level of lifting. Anytime during this process, you can take a parasympathetic breath, silently, deeply, and notice how it allows you to expand further. And this is permeability. In this state, many times, you will be informed. You will realize. You will become aware. Many different levels of reality. Many different dimensions. Many different states. You've activated the basic level of your vehicle. You may say that you have your learner's permit for driving. So, with your awareness now, connect to that border of the mental body. And with your awareness, start to draw it in. It's like gathering the sensation that we talked about at the point, but now our consciousness goes to all areas of that border, front, back, sides, and we pull it in to the focal point. We pull it in toward the physical body. So it becomes less dense, and our physical body starts to reappear in its density and its shape and its form. We're becoming less permeable. We feel the solidness of the room around us. And we can take a deep breath in. And when we breathe out, let the eyes open slowly. Feeling the density of the body. Come back to clear focus. Notice the weight of your body. Notice in a way the disappearance of the viscosity around the body. Our attention now is migrated back to the physical plane, and that's the center point of our perception again. Things that we notice, things that come to us when we do that practice, we don't have to figure it out. We don't have to remember it. We don't have to journal it. Sometimes you can do that. It's okay. You want to just leave it in the state where you encountered it. And over time, it will step down to a place in your consciousness that makes it usable. But be patient with it. Patience is the key. It's like beginner's mind. It takes a lifetime to develop patience. And the more patient we are, actually, the faster things will arrive. The more quickly we'll develop. So it's a very paradoxical idea. The more patient we are, the more quickly things will come to us. So many things in this basic layer we can work with. And it's something I explain sometimes when I'm teaching body work, that a basic technique that we learn at the beginner level, it can be an advanced technique when we utilize it with many years of experience, because how it's being applied and the sensitivity behind the application makes all the difference. So it's also another, I guess, paradoxical thing. These are basics, but they're not. It's also advanced. It's basics, but the information can come to you on any level. Let it come to you. Don't grab it. Don't pull it in. Don't insist that you can understand it. Just let it be where it is. Sometimes it'll immediately be available, And sometimes it can take months for it to step down vibrationally to the place where you can consciously understand it. And that understanding may not be in the form of an explanation. It may be just understanding it as an image, as a, I say, impression. So I'll ask to see if Lynn has any questions moving forward. And I could say that I hope that you enjoyed what we talked about today. I look forward to seeing you very soon because like as I said, we're planning on doing this on a regular basis. And why? Because I think that this kind of work for our Earth environment is really important right now. And this is where we can, as a community, have a very powerful voice in raising the consciousness of the planet. 1% of 1%, the 100th monkey effect, consciousness raises, and off we go. So thank you very much. Thanks to Lynn for doing the tech work. She's always very important behind the scenes here in so many different ways. So, sure. There is a question.
Thanks so much for the experience. Do you visualize a toroidal shape with the bioplasm?
No, I don't actually at this point. Many different shapes come and go, but the consistent shape is the tetrahedron, which I call the diamond light body, but it's not a hard diamond. It's a very, very fluid diamond. And that's this vehicle that I keep talking about. As the light body really matures, it simultaneously becomes an interdimensional vehicle. So you may experience it that way in the shape that you just talked about.
Actually, it's one of the shapes in the light body.
Oh.
The crown and the root chakras.
Oh, okay. So I may not know exactly what that shape is, but Lynn is saying that I actually have drawn it. So evidently, I guess I do see it that way sometimes. I think we do, as we develop these vibrational qualities in our light body, and as our physical body merges more with the light body, shape-shifting is a reality. On an energy level, we're already doing that. And to tell you the truth, some people that I know are doing it physically, but instead of the whole being shape-shifting, it's only a small percentage of their physical body shape-shifts in real time. And I think if you look at it as not expecting like the whole thing to shape-shift, but just notice that a small percentage shape-shifts, you'll start to see it in many people. Is there more, Lynn? Okay. Well, I wish you all a great time till we meet again. And thanks for being here. Thanks for taking part of this. And I hope you enjoyed it.